Yael woke up suddenly in her small Beirut apartment on Al Fardan Street when gunshots broke the quiet. She dropped to the floor and crawled to the window. Peeking through a narrow gap in the curtain, she saw 3 large vehicles parked below. Across the narrow street, lights blazed in the apartments of Kamal Adwan, Mohammed Yusuf al-Najjar, and Kamal Nasser, men from Black September and the PLO who planned the 1972 Munich Olympics attack that killed 11 Israeli athletes. Screams mingled with gunfire, and then she heard Hebrew voices shouting, "Come here, come here." In that moment, it became clear, the intelligence she had shared hours earlier with Aviator, her Mossad contact, over dinner at the Phoenicia Hotel, had triggered the operation against the targets she had been monitoring for months. Earlier that evening, on April 9, 1973, Yael sat in the refined dining room of Beirut's Phoenicia Hotel, with a green scarf draped over her chic sports jacket. Across from her was Aviator, a fellow Mossad operative from the Caesarea unit, posing as her boyfriend. Over wine and dinner, they spoke casually about her apartment's view and her neighbors, yet each word carried hidden intent. "They're home today, all 3, Yael confirmed, noting that Adwan, al-Najjar, and Nasser were in their apartments across from hers. Aviator nodded, instructing her to stay away from the windows and promising to meet again soon. Unaware of the imminent operation, Yael left the restaurant in good spirits, strolling through Beirut's downtown before returning home at 9 p.m. She checked her apartment for signs of intrusion, glanced at the lit windows of her targets, and went to bed, confident her intelligence was up to date until she was woken by the gunfire. After the brief but intense gunfire ceased, the silence settled over Al-Walid Street was soon interrupted by the wail of Lebanese police sirens. Yael sat at her desk by the window, calmly writing a coded message to her Mossad handlers, hidden in a letter that looked like it was meant for a lover named Emil. The full letter read, "Emil, my dear, I am still shaking from last night's events. I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night from the sound of explosions. I ran to the window and saw a battle taking place in the street. It was awful. I ran back to the other window, where I thought I would be protected from an errant bullet. After a few hours the quiet returned, and to my surprise I fell asleep. When I woke up I thought it was all just a bad dream. But no, it was reality, those awful Israelis were really here. I think I might take a vacation and visit you during the Easter holiday. Lovingly yours, Reba, your nun in Lebanon." Embedded within was her coded message, "It was a great show last night. Well done." Alone in her apartment, Yael thought of her parents in the US, unaware their gentle daughter was a Mossad agent in Beirut, watching a deadly operation unfold. If they knew, they'd be shocked. For months, Yael had posed as an American novelist writing a screenplay about a British noblewoman who lived in Lebanon in the 19th century. Her apartment gave her a clear view of the targets' homes, where she tracked their movements without binoculars. Yael was born in Canada in 1936 and moved from New Jersey to Israel in 1968. She was raised in a secular Jewish family. Her father was a physicist, her mother a homemaker, and they celebrated Christmas, with little connection to Jewish tradition. Her only real brush with antisemitism came as a child, when someone told her to move because she was a dirty Jew. She replied without anger, simply correcting them. After a troubled marriage, she left the US, seeking a fresh start. Israel, on edge before the Six-Day War, offered her both escape and a sense of meaning she hadn't found elsewhere. In Tel Aviv, she worked as a computer systems analyst, but the feeling of isolation stayed with her. She enrolled in Hebrew classes at an Alpon, though without plans to stay long. Her language skills remained limited. Then, in early 1971, she began a relationship with an Israeli man who said he worked as a bodyguard for the Mossad. The connection sparked something in her, an inner pull, a sense of purpose. Compelled by the idea, She asked him to help her get in touch with the Mossad. She wanted to be part of it. Weeks after her request, Yael received a cryptic phone call from an unidentified man asking, "Do you want to do something for the country?" She agreed without hesitation, and they arranged to meet at a cafe in Tel Aviv. Yael arrived at the cafe, nervous but composed, meeting two men who questioned her extensively about her background, motivations, and life in Israel. At the end of the meeting, one of them needed a ride home, and Yael, flustered, couldn't find her car for several minutes. She thought this blunder would disqualify her, but 2 days later, she was called for another meeting. During that meeting, on a Saturday afternoon, Yael met Mike Harari, head of the Mossad Caesarea unit, in an empty office building in Tel Aviv. His deep voice and shifting gaze kept her on edge. She opened up about her life, her upbringing, her failed marriage, and her relocation to Israel inspired by a commitment to support those struggling against the odds. She expressed a clear determination to make herself valuable, to do something meaningful. Harari, unsure whether her softness and beauty would help or hinder her in covert work, weighed her potential carefully. About a month later, she met Savi Zamir, the Mossad's director, who shared similar doubts but ultimately gave his approval. That marked the beginning of her training, with both men aware that her naivety could be a double-edged sword, sometimes lowering others' defenses, other times putting her at risk in dangerous situations. Yael began her Mossad training in Israel, a rigorous process to prepare her for covert operations. She learned surveillance techniques, such as observing targets without drawing attention, detecting signs of intrusion in her living space, and secure communication methods, like embedding coded messages in letters. Her trainers emphasized leveraging her American background and feminine demeanor to avoid suspicion. After completing her training, Yael's first assignment took her to Brussels, Belgium, where she seamlessly integrated into the local community, establishing an apartment, a job, and a circle of friends. 3 months after arriving in Brussels, she set out on her first mission, tasked with gathering intelligence in Beirut. Over the following months, she would travel in and out of Lebanon several times. Around that time, her handlers started preparing her for an extended stay in the country. Her handlers began working behind the scenes to craft a flawless cover identity, one that would allow her to blend seamlessly into Lebanese society and extend her stay without raising suspicion. Every detail was meticulously planned: forged documents, a credible backstory, and carefully planted connections. The goal was clear: embed her deep enough to operate unnoticed, gaining the trust and freedom needed to carry out her mission. Her handlers settled on the perfect cover, the role of an American novelist working on a screenplay for a movie set to be filmed in Lebanon. It checked every box: plausible reasons for travel, access to diverse social circles, and a credible excuse for her presence in key locations. This identity would allow her to move freely, ask questions without raising alarms, and blend into the cultural scene. The carefully constructed persona offered her the freedom to gather intelligence under the guise of creative work, making her mission all the more believable. To strengthen her cover, Yael met with Israeli novelist Shabtai Tevath in Israel. Tevath, a friend of Mike Harari's, taught her to look the part of a writer, showing her his cluttered workspace, scattered drafts, pens, and books, and explaining the writing process from ideation to drafting. Over several days, Yael absorbed the intellectual atmosphere, learning to mimic a novelist's habits. She then traveled to London's Victoria and Albert Museum, researching Lady Hester Stanhope, born in 1776, a noblewoman who settled in Lebanon and earned the nickname Queen of the East. Yael crafted a screenplay about Stanhope, giving her the depth for her cover story. In early 1973, Yael arrived in Beirut with her screenplay about Lady Hester Stanhope in hand and her cover as an American novelist fully developed. She checked into a modest hotel in the bustling city, blending in with tourists and expatriates while quietly searching for an apartment that would allow her to observe her targets. She spent days exploring Beirut's neighborhoods, guided by Mossad intelligence, until she found a building owned by Fuad Abad, a friendly landlord who lived there with his sisters. On the 4th floor, She secured an apartment with a direct view of the target's residences, Adwan and al-Najjar on the 6th floor of one building, Nasser on the 3rd floor of an adjacent one. Yael moved in, setting up a large desk under the window, scattered with drafts, pens, and books as Tevath had taught her, to perfect her novelist persona. She introduced herself to Fuad and his family as an American writer working on a film project, charming them with her soft demeanor. Each day, she monitored the target's apartments, noting their comings and goings, visitors, and guards, reporting to her handlers via coded messages. She frequented local cafes and markets, building rapport with neighbors who warmed to her unassuming presence. In March 1973, Yael's detailed intelligence from Beirut, combined with reports from other Mossad agents, was compiled by the Caesarea unit's intelligence officer, confirming that a strike against Adwan, al-Najjar, and Nasser was feasible. Mike Harari, Savi Zamir, and the intelligence officer presented this data to Israel's Chief of Staff, David Elatzar, in his office. Elatzar approved Operation Spring of Youth, emphasizing that real-time intelligence was critical to ensure the targets were present, preventing the commandos from arriving at empty apartments. Harari assured him that Yael's surveillance from her Beirut apartment would provide this vital information. The plan assigned Sayeret Motkol, paratroopers special forces, and Shea Tet 13 to carry out the raid, with Caesarea agents providing intelligence and guiding the forces through Beirut streets as drivers turned from their targets. Soon after, Harari met Yael in Brussels, instructing her to monitor the target's movements day and night without mentioning an operation. He told her, "Yael, at the very end, you will be there alone with the knowledge and experience you gained, and with who you are. Put it all together and do it your way. I trust you." Yael responded, "Mike, I will report on what I see and find in real time," unaware her reports would enable the operation's launch on April 9. 3 weeks after her meeting with Harari, Yael met Aviator in Beirut. A few months earlier, Yael had worked with Aviator on a mission photographing sensitive compounds in Beirut, but when they met at the luxurious Intercontinental Hotel bar in early April 1973, they acted as if they were strangers. Yael initiated the conversation, asking if they had met at the Louvre in Paris, and subtly shared the latest details on the target's routines. 2 days later, on April 9, 1973, they met again at the Phoenicia Hotel, where Yael's confirmation that all 3 targets were home set the stage for Operation Spring of Youth. Beirut buzzed with tension after the raid. In the days that followed, police and security agencies maintained a heavy presence around the area, conducting thorough investigations and tightening security across the city. Yael's instructions were to leave her apartment immediately, claim fear of the violence, and check into a hotel before flying to Belgium after a week for a vacation. The Mossad chose not to extract her immediately to protect her safety and preserve her cover, ensuring she could continue operating in Arab countries in the future. An immediate evacuation risked exposing her, so they decided she should leave Beirut in a calm, normal manner to avoid suspicion. However, when Yael approached her landlord, Fuad Abud, with whom she had built a strong rapport, and expressed her fear and desire to leave, he looked alarmed. He warned that a sudden exit would arouse suspicion, as authorities were scrutinizing foreigners, especially Americans, for possible ties to the Israeli operation. Prioritizing her cover, Yael chose to stay, defying her orders. She moved in with Fuad's family, who welcomed her warmly, and continued her routine, visiting the library and salon, to maintain her novelist persona. Yael stayed in Beirut for 5 days after the operation. As her plane took off, she felt relieved but also thought about the kind Lebanese people who had trusted her, not knowing who she really was. In May 1973, back in Tel Aviv, Yael met Mike Harari, who explained why she was kept in the dark about the operation's timing. Her naivety ensured she acted naturally, preserving her cover. She went on to other missions, earning a Chief of Staff's commendation, though details about these operations remain classified. In May 1973, Yael met with Prime Minister Golda Meir. Meir had imagined everyone in the Mossad as tough, muscular heroes, so when Yael entered the room, she was stunned and said, "This little girl did all of that?" They spoke in English, and Meir invited Yael to sit beside her on the sofa. When they parted, Meir hugged and kissed her, clearly moved by the young woman's role in the spring of youth operation. In the late 1980s, after 15 years of service at the Mossad and after participating in many covert operations, she retired from her service in the intelligence agency. She returned to Israel, where she was welcomed as a national hero, and got married to her Hebrew teacher. Israel announced the death of Yael on Sunday, August 29, 2021, at the age of 85. Her real name is still kept secret until this day.